Okay, we want to welcome everyone to council meeting. We'll call this meeting to order. We have an agenda in front of us. We need someone to make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll move.
Councillor Hagee. Anybody else? Anything else? Any deletions or additions from anybody? If not, all in favor? Okay. There are no delegations. We have our minutes from April 21st council minutes. Any discussion on these from anybody?
I move we accept those minutes.
Councillor Price moves we accept these minutes. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. We also have some minutes from the council committee meeting on April 28th.
I move to accept those.
Councillor Computers moves to accept those. Any discussion?
I have one comment or point.
Okay.
I do believe that our CFO, Martin Wolf, was in attendance at that meeting as well, and he's not listed as an admin person.
I'll take care of that.
Okay.
Yes, he was.
The CAO said he'd take care of it.
Great.
Anything else from anybody? If not, all in favor? Well, you guys are quicker. Okay, the financial report. So we have accounts payable one in front of you. Anyone have any questions?
Could you enlarge it a bit more, please? There, thank you.
So Curtis, I have a question on 646.
Okay,
What's the sportsman program?
that's our recreation software that we use to register for all our programs and different events at the townhouse.
Okay. Anyone else have a question? If not, we need a motion to accept financial report.
I'll move we accept financial reports.
Councillor Harker made that motion. Any other discussion then? All in favor? Okay, it's approved. Items for discussion, 6.1, the COVID-19 update. We have our Director of Emergency Services here, Ken Speed. He's going to give us a little brief update of what's going on and his take on it. So Ken, we'll turn the time to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. For those of you who are joining us in the public, I'm Ken Steed, the Director of Emergency Management for the town of Raymond. I've been the Deputy Director and the Director for about 10 years now, and it's been fun.
Excuse me, is Ken, are you by the microphone? I can't hear. Does anybody else hear good? I can't hear very
Do I
good.
have a microphone on here? Is it so it's not picking me up? Do you want my parade square voice?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize you couldn't hear. Are you okay now?
A little better, yeah.
Is that even better? Can you hear me well enough?
I can hear you well enough now.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you, I'm sorry. For an update, just a few statistics. There were 70 new cases of COVID in the province the last 24 hours, which gives us a total of 5,836, with unfortunately 104 have died and 9 of those in the last 24 hours. The good news, we have 2,942 confirmed people who have totally recovered from COVID-19, so we're pleased with that. couple of statements. I believe Curtis put in your package this document, other than my, I don't know how to do, where's the mic? Oh, there it is. Other than my notes, of course. If you have that and can flip to it, or can we do that, Curtis? Can we flip it page by page as we go? Greg, are you into that? Thank you. A couple of points from the beginning remarks from our premier and from our senior health officer. She said we face a long road to recovery. And I think that's the summary, that's on the next page. That's the summary of kind of what we're about to face. I would like to specifically look at pages, give you a hint, Greg, 6, 7, 8, 9, and if you want to do the interprovincial comparisons, you can look at page 10 when I'm done, okay? So if we could slip over to page 6, there are 7 conditions that are listed there for the relaunch. And the Premier went through them, but only quickly, and I won't go through them in detail, but this is the criteria he's looking at to begin the relaunch. The one I would like to highlight is the 5th one, public use of masks in specific crowded spaces or mass transit. If you recall my last presentation, I talked to you about a possible new normal that we may have to accept, that things aren't going to be they were before. And I referred specifically back to when, before the last terrorism activity, and we could travel easily by air, and then now there's a whole new normal for traveling, and we've accepted that. Well, there's going to be, I suspect, a similar kind of thing, but at least that's the analogy I used, and I think I'm okay with that. But here he talked about the public use of masks in specific crowded spaces or mass transit. I attended a conference this afternoon by telephone with the province, the other directors of emergency management, and some of the chief administration officers from some of our municipalities. And what they're talking to the province about is if they're going to impose that upon us, then the province has the responsibility to ensure that we have that personal protective equipment, that PPE, that it shouldn't be our responsibility if they're going to force us to do that. So as you know, we have some now, but if it looks like we're going to do that, then we will go ahead and put an order in to cover everybody in our community. Of course, we don't have mass transit, but we may have some specific crowded spaces, particularly if they ease up on our recreational facilities, okay? The next point, strong protections for the most vulnerable, including those in long-term care. One of the statements I picked up on the presentations in the last 24 hours, it was a statement that said, we will continue to put a ring of defense around our seniors and vulnerable populations. That tells me that there are going to be some changes that will be part of that new normal that we talked about in the future, particularly for those people who are vulnerable and our seniors. Okay. So within the document, it talks about 3 stages, and our Premier was clear on that, stage 1, 2, and 3, but very few people are talking about stage 0 or our current position. So let's take a look at going into page 7 and what is going to bring us from one stage to the next. And here are his, meaning the Premier's, key measures of timing. The first one is percentage of tests that are positive. The second one is hospitalization and intensive care unit rates. So what he's really saying here, and it's in that bottom statement there where it says continuous evaluation of health triggers. And to me, those triggers are 4-fold. The positive tests per day, the total number of cases of COVID-19, the total number of deaths, and the total number of people recovered. And I think if we see those 4 triggers and watch them closely, and I am watching those, I get reports twice a day on them, I'm watching them closely. And I think if we watch the trends on those, we will be able to have sufficient time to make the changes in our community that will be coming up. Those are the things our province is watching for. So let's talk about our current stage. It's on page 8. Okay, thank you. This is where we are right now. Where you can go through those 6 areas all by yourself. Each one of them is important to somebody or to all of us. The second last one, access to boat launches, will open in selective provincial parks on May the 1st. The province has still, to this time, even though it's the 5th, not given us any details or regulations or any changes towards a new normal on those openings. So we just don't have details. I know we don't have a boat launch in Raymond, I know that, but we have them in our county around us. The parks on May the 14th, slightly starting on June the 1st and onwards, so that's pretty close. The golf courses are all kinds of people happy about the golf course changes. But there will again be a new normal. The new normal will include some hygiene requirements and of course social distances. If any of you have golfed with me, you know you're not going to worry about social distance because I'll be off by myself someplace. Don't worry about me. Let's go on to page 9, which is the meat of the whole document. And this is stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. Obviously, there's no dates or no timings other than stage 1. And they're still assuming it's going to be 14 May, next Thursday. Notice that physical distancing will require, that's the second bullet right there. Retail businesses such as clothing, furniture, and bookstores, some personal services such as hairstyling and barbershops, museums and art galleries. And again, there will be some hygiene requirements and some social distance requirements on that. You can go down there. The restaurants and cafes, 50% capacity. It also talks about some additional outdoor recreation. And even up till today, there are no details from the province on what that means. So I just don't know yet. I don't know what additional outdoor recreation they're talking about right now, I'm sorry. The one underneath that, rules and guidance for the use of masks in crowded spaces, especially on mass transit. We talked about that a few minutes ago. Visitors to patrons at healthcare facilities will continue to be limited. And then it talks about the public attendances at businesses and so forth at the bottom. However, movie theaters, pools, recreation centers, arenas, spas, gyms, and nightclubs will remain closed all the way through stage 1. Still, non-essential travel is not recommended, and they're still going to encourage us to do remote working when we can. You might want to ask us when we're going into stage 2. I've just talked to you a moment ago about some of the key indicators we should watch for, and then we'll watch for those. One of the things for our community is libraries in stage 2, and there are absolutely no details yet on any kinds of special changes or anything that our town people or anybody that goes to our library would need to know about. We just don't know yet. The province has not come out with any new regulations or any new guidelines or anything about libraries. So I assume before we go into stage 2, we will get that information, okay? Under stage 2, movie theaters and theaters will be opening, will open, but again, there will have restrictions. And we're not sure what they will be yet, but I'm assuming that they'll be space and hygiene. The other ones are easy. Even in stage 2, non-essential travel is again not recommended. And in stage 3, fully reopening all businesses and services with limited restrictions. And as I said before, now they're heading towards that new normal that we talked about before. The numbers I'm not sure about. It says permitting larger gatherings, number of people to be determined. So they still haven't decided to promise what we're going to have for our larger gatherings in the future. We just don't know yet. So the bottom line on this is that the province has the 3-stage plan. It's already been implemented with some changes like golf courses on the weekend, and they're going through it, but it's going to be slow and steady, and I'm assuming there will be some continued restrictions that will be placed upon us in the future. We just don't know the details of those yet, okay? On the page 11, if you want to refer to how's Alberta compared to other provinces, you can go there. I won't take your time now to go through it, but you can go through there and see where we are now and see how we're compared with public health measures and also the industry restrictions. The quote I put at the very beginning when I started talking was from here under protecting seniors and vulnerable protections. It says, we will continue to put a ring of defense around seniors and vulnerable populations. So I don't know what that means for the Ridgeview Lodge and Good Sam's in Raymond, but I do know that there will be restrictions in the future, but they'll be lessened a little bit than where they are right now. Do you have any questions for me or any concerns I can help you by addressing?
I will add that when we met with, Curtis and I met with Minister Hunter, he did say that if we did have an outbreak here, when things did open up or restrictions were lessened, if we did have an outbreak, then things would have to go back in our own area. We'd have to have more restrictions again. So.
Exactly, and the Premier was clear on that, Your Worship, when he gave his presentation, that this is all dependent on those key factors I talked about, and he is prepared to lessen the restrictions or return to where we are now or make them even worse. Or sorry, I don't mean worse, I apologize, make them even tighter.
So we have to do our part.
Yep.
That's the important part.
Yep, we need to be cautious and clean. This town, I'm proud of this town. Our people in our town have been very, very receptive, and it's hard. We have all been hurt by these restrictions. I understand that, and it's hard. But because we have complied with the province's requirements, we are significantly better off than some communities. We also have a lower density population, which has helped us lots too.
Anyone else have any questions for Ken Steed?
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to serve you.
Well, thank you for coming, Ken. We appreciate you checking in with the government and listening to those town hall calls and
You're welcome.
giving us the updates.
I will continue.
Thanks.
We appreciate it. Okay, we'll move to 6.2, the Aquatic Center and Heritage Days 2020. We said about a month ago we would have our drop dead date, May 5th, and that is here. So we need to talk about these two events, the Aquatic Center. As you can see,
Still not possible to open pool
Still
according
not
to
possible.
provincial
Yeah.
regulations. So that's still out of our,
this is something that we've brought up at least 3 of the past 4 weeks talking about the Aquatic Center, but I think it's obvious we can't, not gonna be allowed to open it up on July 1st anyway. It might happen, there might be some restrictions lifted going into August, but as of July 1st, I don't think it's gonna happen. Any comments from anybody?
Well, the pool we just saw, it's not even gonna be lifted till phase 3, and there's not even a date set for phase 3 yet,
We don't
or
know.
phase 2, so we don't know, we have no idea when that's gonna happen.
And I'm an optimist, so I keep thinking things are gonna happen, and things aren't happening as quick as I would like to see it happen, so. Anyway, I think I have to be a realist now that things are not gonna work by July 1st. Any other comments about the pool from anybody? Okay, we'll go to Heritage Days. I've sure had a lot of people talk to me about Heritage Days, what's happening. I had a person pull up today on their bicycle that wanted to know what we were doing. I think it's the same thing, we've talked about this for the last 4 weeks. I believe we can't do this either. We can't, we're not gonna be able to have crowds over, right now it's over 15. Maybe by July it might be 150, if you're being an optimist like I am. That's still not big enough,
I'm glad there are a few optimists left
Yeah.
after what we've been through.
and that's still not a big enough crowd to be able to do anything. How do you do it?
Some families, 150 doesn't cut it, I mean, that's not enough. But Hugh, and he was sent me a list of, and he even sent them to you too, Curtis. Do you mind if I talk about those right now?
For sure.
Some really good ideas from the recreation department, things that we could promote and encourage Raymondites to do. And I'm just gonna read that list to you.
Sure.
Unless
Is
you want-
anybody's microphone cutting in and out, like,
Can you hear me, you guys?
I can hear you.
Okay, this is from Hugh Simpson, and some really cute ideas on here. He says, if we're not allowed to have normal Canada Day July 1st celebrations due to COVID-19, social distancing and gathering restrictions, the town of Raymond Recreation.
Bryce is trying to reconnect, it says.
Can you hear me, Joan? Joan? No. Anyway, I can send this on to everybody too, but doing a virtual Harlan Taylor
Yes.
run. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Good. Participants can register to complete a 2K, 5K, or 10K run on their own time and record their times on the website. They'd be able to complete the run from June 24th to June 30th. If we charge a registration fee, perhaps a portion could be donated to food bank, handy bus, or hospital auxiliary. I think that the handy bus would be a great recipient of that too. Create a video slideshow from video footage and photos from past parades that can be viewed on the town's YouTube channel throughout the day. And that's just a real clever idea, I think. Encourage residents to have a front yard barbecue on their property to be visible to the neighbors. You know, every house could do that. It'd be kind of a fun thing to even drive around and see who's barbecuing. Have a light up your yard contest where residents are encouraged to decorate their yards in a Canada Day theme and use Christmas lights to light up their yards. People could drive around town at night to see all the displays before the fireworks. Have a drive-in outdoor movie at the old Northside soccer fields. Anyone who wished to attend would need to register online before the showing, and we would need to check in the vehicles as they arrive. Create a historical Raymond scavenger hunt that residents can participate in by visiting and taking pictures of historical sites around town. Encourage residents to have their own Canada Day themed pancake breakfast and make it a photo contest. I love that idea, it's great. And finally, have a Canada Day stage set up at the community center where artists can perform throughout the afternoon. Would need to monitor and encourage everyone to keep a proper physical distance. And that's, contact Karen Wildhugh Simpson for further details. But that's a list of really great details that they've come up with that can still make it quite a celebratory day for us.
Councillor Fromm,
Uh-huh.
just for your information, the Rotary Club has discussed the parade significantly as well.
Okay.
And Brant Woolsey is willing and just chomping at the bit to be able to do something in the form of a video type parade. And so maybe you could have Hugh contact him.
I sure will.
They could work together to determine how that might come about and what might be able to be done.
Thank you. Any other comments on those ideas or other ideas that you could add, or do you want me to circulate that to everybody?
I think you
Not
should.
like you sent me.
Okay.
Those are great ideas.
I love the idea of doing what we can, with the restrictions as much as possible. So I love those ideas.
And you'll notice that he said before the fireworks, so there's still that, that's that assumption we could still do the fireworks. And I think that's a good idea too. I know Lethbridge just canceled their fireworks, but we don't have to do that. So that is a big budget item. We can either do that or save the fireworks for next year or whatever, but we can still do fireworks on July 1st, which is a strong tradition.
People can still social distance during fireworks, for sure.
So
I
Mayor
think
and Council,
fireworks could be done and the social distancing could be done if people stayed in their vehicles rather than try to sit out on the yards and the lawns and everything that are public areas anyway.
so Mayor and Council, just an update for you. We had put in our order for fireworks, but it's been brought to my attention that we haven't actually paid for them yet. And we're having a difficult time actually contacting the person or the company right now. So we're not sure if they're even in business currently or if we're gonna have to find a new supplier. So we're not, from what I'm being told, we're not all that in favor of storing them over the winter just due to the safety and the challenges that would bring. So
Good
if
consideration.
we don't use them this year, we won't use them. And we haven't purchased them yet, so if we are gonna do it, as we get closer to it, it'll just depend on whether or not we can actually find another source in the meantime.
Okay, that's good to know. I think we should be trying to do that. I think the fireworks is a good tradition.
There should be a glut of fireworks on the market this year, and I'm sure several communities will be closing down. We might be able to get them at half price, who knows?
Does anyone know what Mike Smith is doing? Dr. Smith? Has he reached out to you?
Nothing formal though.
So just for a laugh for everybody, I've had 2 people approach me about having the parade go down every street in town. And everybody could be out on their own lawns. The only bad part is the people in the parade are gonna be mighty tired, it's gonna be a mighty long event, but it's kind of a
Be a
funny
6-hour
idea.
parade.
Yeah. I was surprised that 2 people mentioned it, not just one, but 2 people, so.
It's a
Anyway,
cute idea, but slightly impractical, I think, at first blush.
Yeah.
oh, don't.
Can anybody hear me up?
Yes. Any other comments from anybody?
Oh, well, I've been trying to comment for 10 minutes, but for some reason, nobody could hear me, but can you hear me now? I had to log out and log back in.
Yep,
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Hear me, okay. I've had a couple of people approach me about having a sort of a parade, only really a parade of families. So each family can have a float or a bicycle, whatever, social distance down Main Street, and it would still be a sort of a parade. I thought that was kind of cool idea. I don't know what the logistics of it would be, but the families are, they're all anxious to make a good showing. So I don't know how that would work, but I thought it was kind of a cool idea.
Anything else from anybody? Joan, you have any other ideas? Councillor Peters has his hand up.
Yeah, I spoke with an individual yesterday who's on the Stampede organization group, and in their group, and probably Ken could address this as well from his meetings, but this was a discussion he had recently with the other members of that Ag and Stampede group, that he was feeling the pressure if they were going to try and go ahead with a rodeo of some kind, the pressure of trying to get sponsorships. And 4 of the 5 groups that he typically goes to and gets money from have been out of work for the last month or month and a half, or whatever it is. So he felt that it would be impossible to try and get money from these individuals. And following the movement of the Calgary Stampede, he thought it was the best interest to take a break from the rodeo this year and deal with the COVID and try and come up with some plans to have a big and strong rodeo next year.
I think Councillor Hagee might have some comments as a representative on the Stampede Board.
Yeah, I the last meeting that we had, that was one of their biggest concerns, Councilor Peters, was sponsorship. Some of them on the board thought that they would still have pretty good sponsorship, but some didn't think they will, and obviously a lot of them aren't getting very good response from the sponsors. But the consensus at the end of the meeting that we had last time was basically a couple of guys mentioned we can plan this all we want, but in reality we pretty well know that's not going to happen. And but they still wanted to plan it, be in the planning stage just in case something happened where they could host a rodeo. They were kind of waiting to see what the Calgary Stampede did, and with them canceling, is a majority of them said that how can we morally have a stampede when the Calgary Stampede isn't going? How can we do it? The Calgary Stampede is a huge, we're talking about millions and millions of dollars to that city that they're willing to give up because of this COVID. So, it's kind of hard to justify that we can have a rodeo when Big Rodeo Canada can't have one. And then I found out again today that going farther than that is Spruce Meadows had canceled previously their tournaments in July and first part of August, and today they canceled their big tournament, which is in September, strictly to the fact that they don't think that there'll be mass gatherings even in September. But they think it'll happen later in the year. So they've shut everything completely down. They have a beautiful soccer complex out at Spruce Meadows. They're not letting anyone practice there, nothing. The whole complex is just shut right down until probably October. So talking to a few of them, I think they all realized that the rodeo wasn't going to happen, but they were still kind of wishful thinking.
It's
I think they're all okay with the fact that it's not gonna happen.
it's a sad day when we had to do this. 2020 will be a year to remember in history about all this, but we didn't want to see this happen, and guess we have to be realists about it. Any other comments from anybody? Do we need a motion on that?
I'd like a motion, yes.
Need a motion on canceling these two events? I don't know how you wanna word that motion, because we're still gonna have some of the Heritage Days, but the Aquatic Center will be canceled.
I think the motion could just state something along the lines that we move that the Aquatic Center won't open for the 2020 season, and that Heritage Days will be reduced or cut back, and that it'll be on a reduced scale in accordance to COVID provincial government restrictions.
Okay, everybody hear that?
We'll make it sound good.
Someone wanna make the motion?
I'll move.
Councilor Peters? Keep beating you to it.
Yeah, just what Curtis said about not opening the Aquatic Center this year and making changes to our Heritage Days to meet the demands, I guess, or the needs of COVID-19 taking place this year.
Okay, any other discussion from anybody? Okay, all in favor?
Hate to be in favor, but what can you do? Seriously.
I agree.
That's our thing to do.
Okay. Thank you. 6.3, utility relief request letter. Last week in committee, we discussed this letter. We asked Curtis to draft up a letter in response. You've all got it in front of you. I think he's caught everything that we wanted on that letter. Does everything look okay to everybody?
There is the one typo that I have caught, and it's corrected on the actual
Good job.
response, so.
Before you caught it.
What we'll need is a motion on this to send this out. So we need a motion from somebody.
I'll move.
Councillor Hagee. Any other discussion on this? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Okay,
I don't feel mean about that. I mean, what we've done is really a show of sympathy and there's a real show, helping groups who are having trouble paying their bills just like that. No penalties till January, which is an extended, like a protracted, compared to the AUMA survey, there were only 2 facilities in the province that responded that would extend that all the way to January, so.
Yeah, I heard on the radio today, the city Lethbridge, they're saying they're still, I think October 1st, but not any later than that.
Okay.
So,
they might extend them as it goes, but right
yeah,
now-
but as of right now, it's October 1st and they've done. And I know some municipalities, it's just till like August 1st, September 1st, so we've gone farther.
Okay. So we'll move on to 6.4, the first reading of bylaw 1087-20, the subdivision and development authority bylaw. Abe, do you want to talk about this, or you,
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
I know, I can't.
Yeah, you guys can. Everybody? Okay, so I think you reviewed this last week at committee meeting. But both of these bylaws that we're proposing first reading on are really to align the municipality with the MGA requirements. These bylaws are not proposing to change any of our practices. As you can see in the briefing, we are required to have a bylaw for subdivision authority. We are required to have a bylaw for development authority, and we can have a bylaw to establish an NPC. And so we've combined all 3 of those in this bylaw, and the provision should match existing, the provisions do match existing practices. So this is kind of dotting some I's and crossing some T's legislatively, I guess. So.
okay, there you go. We discussed it.
I move that we approve in the first reading for this bylaw 1087-20.
Okay, Councillor Price, makes the motion to approve this. So we discussed it at length already. Any other discussion tonight?
Totally appropriate.
Okay, then I'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay. All thumbs are up. It's unanimous. We'll move to 6.5, the first reading of bylaw 1090-20, the Regional Assessment Review Board. Abe, you want to talk about this one?
Sure. Again, very similar to the previous one, in that it's a legislative requirement that we actually assign this. And what we're doing is assigning the Assessment Review Board to ORSC, a Regional Assessment Review Board. And council has actually already approved this, but in order to be in compliance with the agreement and legislation, we need to actually have a bylaw doing that. It's actually a cost-effective method to go about our assessment reviews. It's good. It's a good service, and I just recommend that we do that.
Okay,
None of it makes sense.
so we're looking for a motion from someone on this. Councillor Fromm makes that motion. Any other discussion? We've discussed this one at length last week too in the committee meeting. Okay, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you, Abe. 6.6. The public hearing date. Need to set that. Okay, is all we need is a public hearing date for this?
Just, yeah, a motion to establish a public hearing date. We'll make sure that we advertise the business plan for the 30 days as per the legislative requirements. And then on June 9th, we'll have that public hearing.
So motion.
I'll move the public hearing date for June 9th,
Okay,
that's
Councillor
Thursday.
Harker moves that public hearing date for June 9th for this public hearing for the Sugar City Municipal Development. Any other discussion on this?
Mayor,
Councillor Foss?
I did just have one comment, and I don't know that we're necessarily passing the documents right now, so should comments about the documents be reserved to the point where we're discussing them further, or are we discussing the documents right now?
There are errors in the document. Is that what you found, Stuart?
I just wanted to follow up on the comments last week about a couple of lots. Two of the three were removed.
Okay.
One wasn't, but I'm guessing there were typos too. I didn't spot any of those.
Yeah, I spotted a few. I was waiting for Ron to do it, but I found them.
Good job, John.
So Curtis, anything info on that?
So Councillor Foss, can you direct us to which one is still there that needs to be pulled out? Because we tried to remove those.
Yeah, I added it to the shared notes. It's just I think it's lot 1, block 55. There was just 2 lots on that block, and it's in the extreme north east of town. And I just felt that perhaps we needed a better plan for that neighborhood before we
The northeast?
transfer those. Northeast, yeah, lot 55, block 1. It's about 2/3 of the way down that list.
Okay.
203,
Yeah, I wish we
9.
could see it on a map, because I don't really know where that is. Can you
No, we
tell us where that is?
I was gonna say it's you know that little park on the corner just by Town Hall, the one that we just is sold and proposed Dairy Queen going in.
Oh, yes.
If you drive the road beside that, straight north, it's right at the end of the road that we own a corner lot there, and then we own another lot about halfway up that block.
So you're actually saying northwest. You said northeast.
Sorry,
That-
northwest.
Northwest. Okay, well, that makes a difference.
Does make a big difference, yeah, northwest.
Okay.
So are these affected by the public hearing, Curtis? Like,
Well, we'll make these adjustments so that what goes out to the public is what you want. And then there's an opportunity for council and the public to provide further comments then. But if there are changes you'd like made, we can make those now before that's advertised, and then that can be what's discussed. You won't actually pass it until after the public hearing. So there's still time to make changes.
okay, everybody understand that? Okay, a good catch, Councillor Foss. Okay, so we need a motion. Do we already have a motion?
I move
Joe.
the
Councillor Harker moved.
date, June 9th, yes.
Okay, I thought we did. Okay, then we need to call for the vote. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, we move on to 6.7, the 2020 operating budget.
So, just before you do that, what about those errors in that document, Curtis? Has that gonna be gone over again? Or
Are you just referring
should we
to
discuss
grammatical-
that in committee or,
Just grammatical errors?
pardon?
Is it just grammatical and spelling errors?
Kind of, there's a place that sounds kind of awkward and some things that
Just have some notes.
don't make sense because the wrong word was used, but whatever.
Just send us an
They
email.
they do need to be fixed.
Just send us an email with your suggestions and we can make those adjustments.
Okay, you bet.
Okay, back to 6.7, 2020 operating budget. Marty, are you there?
I am.
Do you want to say anything on this, or do you want Councillor Price to?
It hasn't changed, so that's the same document that we talked about last week.
Okay,
Since then, I've made a couple of modifications, especially to the over budget, under budget amounts under operational services and under community services, but that will show up in our next audit finance committee update when I update this report. So
okay,
other than that, the budget stays the same.
Yeah, what we're approving is actually the column that heads budget 2020. Those are the
Yeah.
numbers we're approving.
so if he says nothing's been changed on it, everything looks okay then?
Considering the significant amount of discussions that we've had, the decisions that we've made at the audit and finance level and recommendations coming from there, and the understanding I believe council has with this document, I would make the motion that we accept this bylaw and provide first reading.
2020 operating budget?
2020
This year.
operating budget.
Okay.
Yeah, not the bylaw. The bylaw comes after you've approved the budget.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not the budget.
approve the 2020 operating budget.
So we have a motion on the floor. Everybody understand? Any discussion from this? Okay, then I'll call a vote. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. I think we've gone over this pretty extensively. Okay. So now, 6.8, the first reading of our tax rate bylaw, number 1086-20. So, you want Marty to talk about this? Curtis, do you want to talk about this?
Councillor Price, would you like to say anything as the chair of the Audit and Finance Committee?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you, Curtis.
Just wanted to know if you wanted to lead the discussion on this or if you'd like Martin or myself.
I can certainly lead the discussion. Martin, feel free to correct me where I am in error, okay? The bylaw is in correspondence with the budget that we have just approved. It is a balanced budget, which is important in my opinion that we do and that we have.
Can I just point out the change that I've made here? So according to your school requisition, the numbers that I have in here for your school requisition are the actual numbers from the provincial government for 2020. And then I've also had a subtotal for residential farmland, less the over levy from 2019, which we had, which then gives us our total residential property tax for education, and our total non-residential is the same way. Although in 2019, we had an under levy for our non-residential tax, and therefore we have to charge an additional, scroll down there a little bit, Curtis. I think it's around $7,000, yep. And so that's 83,000, so we had to add 7,000 in our education for non-residential this year, to balance us off for last year.
And just for council's awareness, the reason we had those under and over collections was due to the fact that the province did not release their budget till like October, and when it's typically done in April, and that's when we had passed our budget. So we did our best to estimate. We were close, but not quite.
So this was directed from Alberta Municipal Affairs to present it this way, so that if somebody really wanted to look into our education taxes, we have the actual numbers that the province stated we have to collect, and then we adjust it based on our over or under levies.
I appreciate you doing that, Martin. I believe that does make it clearer and more concise for explanation purposes.
Yep.
Just to continue with the discussion, we are all very aware of the provincial downloaded costs that we have had to budget for this year. And it is a big factor in the fact that the tax rate has increased a bit. And those factors are the policing costs and a reduction in our MSI operating that is so critical to our day-to-day functions. And that in itself amounted to over $200,000, I believe, between the two of them. We've budgeted for operations of the golf course and the swimming pool, and we know that the swimming pool may not generate the revenues that we're hoping there. We anticipate the golf course will, and through means we will continue to work to meet the balanced budget that we have set as is.
And I think
Not sure there's much more we can discuss on it.
I think it's worth noting, council, that the downloaded costs of $57,000 for enhanced policing, approximately $165,000 from MSI operating reduction, and an additional about $75,000 for education. That is the reason why there is going to be an increase in the mill rate. It has nothing to do with municipal operations, as council has worked really hard to try and reduce those the impacts on the budget. So we are trying to make up for that shortfall from provincially downloaded expenses.
Those are important messages. Glad you brought that up. Thanks.
So I've had a lot of people ask me about the taxes, and it's going up. So what is it going up? Is it half a mill rate? Am I right? Am I correct?
Yeah, half a mil approximately. It's about 8.4, 8.9%. Depending upon the assessed value of each household will be different, but that's the overall average.
Which is not something we wanted to do. We don't like to raise taxes in this town. We haven't raised them in, what's the history of the last 5 years? We've only raised it.
Since 2012, I believe the mill rate's raised 1%.
2012, they raised
I
1%,
believe it's around there.
and they haven't really raised except for about 1/4%.
So the mill rate itself has only increased about 1%. Individual property owners may have paid more, if depending on what the assessed value of their home is in comparison to the market.
And there are some cases of that. But
So I think I asked you to have that chart for us. You don't have it from last year, but when this goes out to the public, can you send that with them, with that?
Sure.
With this bylaw too, so they can see where we sit with all the other municipalities?
we won't know how we fit with the 2020 rates yet, but we can show it in comparison to where we were in 2019.
Correct. We wanna show them where we're at. Everybody thinks our taxes are way higher here than everywhere else, and we disagree with that. We're just right in the middle. But like you say, we don't know about 2020 till everybody else does this.
Yeah, we can send that.
Mayor,
Councillor Foss.
just add one comment that I think it's important to note that this budget and this tax rate reflects considerable effort over the last several months to a year to adjust the organization and to try and find cost savings in every way. And there's certain things, those downloaded things from the province, you know, in spite of considerable effort to try and absorb that, this is just the reality is that we have to adjust this to manage that budget. So I suspect some will, you know, think that there are more ways to cut, but I think we've been aggressive in trying to make this balance out without increasing taxes, and here we are, we have to go up.
I agree with that, Councillor Foss. I'm not sure what the percentage reduction in our budget compared to last year was through the cuts that we made, but it is significant, and that's definitely something that should be made aware to the public in our during this first reading process.
So citizens will have the argument that it went up last year, but it didn't go up from our end, it went up on the assessment. And
Land value and assessment, and then if the province increases education requisitions or if the seniors increase their requisition, which I don't believe they did, those are all external factors.
correct. Just want everyone to be aware, so when you're talking to the public, you can help them to understand what's going on here. Okay. Any other discussion on this? If not, we need a motion to accept the first reading of the tax bylaw 1086-20.
I'll move first reading.
Councillor Foss? Okay, so no more discussion? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That was unanimous. Okay. 6.9, the economic development, the emergent opportunities. We had a lot of discussion again last week about this. Here you go on, if you look on that, oh, I just hit it. The 2020 RFD Economic Development Pandemic Recovery Proposal. You'll see the background to this and what he'd like to have moved to fund those. Any discussion on this recommendation by our Economic Development Director?
So council, just one point of clarification, in speaking with our CFO, Martin Wolf, a bit more clearly, in more detail, the items that you choose to do on this will be cash flowed out of our operations. The $280,000 that we had set aside for operations, cash flow support, to my understanding, has been used already to cash flow things to this point. And so we are already committed for numbers 3 and 4, but if you do decide to commit for anything else, that's just going to have to be absorbed in our existing operating cash flow. We won't be able to submit a separate application for them.
Okay. So what he's talking about last week, we we did agree to number 3 and number 4, to move forward with those, even though we didn't have a motion. We have to do the motions in council. So, any discussion on wayfinding and parklets?
Mayor?
Councillor Peters?
Yeah, I thought about this over the week, and I still have a hard time supporting the parklets right now, just based on our situation. And I said it last week, I get the understanding, the idea of trying to support local and get some things going. I just think this needs a little bit more discussion and Some more input, I think, from maybe the community in regards to, and maybe the storefronts in regards to where these would actually sit and how it would look in regards to the communities and in regards to the businesses, and making sure that it's in their best interest.
I think I agree with you. Councillor Foss brought this up last week. You'd like to take it back to the TED committee and just have more discussion on it. Try to understand a little better what they want to do. Maybe have them have a working committee to pursue with this. Councillor Foss, you want to comment?
Yes, yeah, I think the committee can work through those two ideas and develop them to a point where we can bring them back to council for approval. I support both of them. I think they're great ideas. I understand the constraints we're dealing with right now financially, but I think let's let the committee work through it a little further and bring them back. We can move on the ones that we've already kind of, I guess, sort of tacitly approved at this point. But I think there's work the committee can do there.
At what pace is the only question I want to ask. I'm kind of in favor of them. I think it'd be kind of a cool thing to have a group of people sitting outside an ice cream shop and running in and getting more ice cream. But just like at what pace for committee work? Like kind of hurry things along or take a year, or do you have any ideas on that?
Well, what I would say about the parklets in particular is, well, and I guess this applies to the wayfinding, you know, with the current COVID situation, there's going to be restrictions about how we could do some of the wayfinding, you know, if we can't have events there, I can see how we could maybe hold on that a little bit, but parklets, will there be a point in this summer where we can have people sitting out in front of a ice cream shop having ice cream? I don't know. But I think over the course of the summer, that committee could come up with some ideas. We could maybe even test, pilot some ideas roughly, and then if there's success, you know, come back with a more complete budget request.
Okay, I agree with that. And I think the wayfinding is very important for when we do host the summer games. But that's postponed now too, so.
Wayfinding for me is a when, not if. I think we have to do it.
Me too.
It's a matter of when we do
But
it.
even that, there's a best time for doing it, for actually doing it, for the timing of it.
I agree with the wayfinding too, because the need for that is not going to go away, and hopefully we will not be on lockdown forever. So there will be some events eventually in Raymond that people will need to find their way to.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on these two items? Let's move to the drive-in movie event. Any update on this, Greg?
I don't have a date yet, but hopefully within the next 2 weeks.
I've been telling people about it, and they're very excited about it.
Same here, 100% excited.
I haven't heard anything negative.
Especially the admission to get into it. I think that is a great idea.
Okay.
Have you locked down where yet?
I
Or are you
have.
still working on that?
I have. We need to do a bit of groundwork to make sure that, I mean, it's mostly used for some horses and other livestock.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that we're not going to have somebody get stuck or, you know, that we're causing major issues there either. So I have to coordinate that with our public works people to see what they have availability for. So. But I have agreement from the landowner, so we'll make that as soon as I get everything, all the dates and everything, and the movie picked. I will make that and spread that out wide and far.
Exciting.
Okay, number 4, the highway digital LED signs. Any update on them?
Yeah, we've got the invoice. We haven't paid it yet because we're waiting for the motion today. We've actually worked with the current, I don't know, really the owner, I guess, but there's an agent that's involved in this. Again, the original price tag on these is well over 10 times what we're looking at paying. And he even said today when we were talking with him that he's never sold one outside of his own agency to a town or municipality. We're actually in competition with 2 other municipalities over these signs. And he said there's a tremendous revenue opportunity for the town. So we're looking at some various ideas of how we can manage that. It will take a lot of logistics to get Alberta Transportation to approve where we would like to put them. We also need to discuss electronic and internet needs, depending on the location. So there's some logistics that still need to happen, but we're excited to have an opportunity like this, frankly.
I
It's,
think it's a
It
great
is exciting.
idea.
And you can't beat the price.
no, you cannot.
Okay.
I like it.
Sure sells well. It sold well. Last week we were talking about it. There's
Yeah.
an instant buy-in.
You know, like I said, the revenue opportunities are really impressive, and they're willing to be a quasi agent to deal with national advertisers. The nice thing about that is it brings in more revenue from outside the community, and helps us maintain, obviously cover the cost of these for one, but also to continually keep that screen fresh and new. But at the same time, we'll definitely come up with a plan that really targets Raymond and gives our local businesses and groups an opportunity at a lower rate to advertise on it. Obviously it's Raymond first, right? So we want to make sure that that our needs are met first, but we also have the opportunity to have additional revenue.
So you're trying to secure one or two?
Two,
One for
we
each.
have secured both.
Oh, great.
And in fact, if we get the timing right, we won't even pay crane costs. Quite a bit of loading. They're weighing, how much did he say today?
250 pounds.
2,200 pounds each. So they have a crane coming in to take them out and put the new ones that they have purchased in Lethbridge. So we're gonna have our trailer there and our crews there, so we don't have to pay those crane costs. We'll take care of it once it gets here. So we will have them collected this year. We probably won't have them up this year. That's gonna be a discussion and a budget item for next year for some odds and ends, but that's something we'll work towards with more detail.
That's a huge saving if you could work the crane.
Yeah, well, that's
That's
huge.
a huge.
Very expensive.
Yeah.
What we'll do down here, I'm not sure, but we'll figure that out.
Okay. Any other discussion on this?
So what we are actually needing to do then, if we just go ahead with the two events, that's 34,000, we would need to round that up to 42, correct, Curtis?
I thought we had to do that, yes, but in speaking with Martin, the amounts have already been allocated and we've already received that money. So we're gonna be cash flowing this through savings from some of our other activities and events that we're not actually doing. So we don't need to round it up. So it's just gonna be these dollar amounts that are listed.
So we can approve then the drive-in movie event for 4,000 and the advertising for 30,000,
Correct,
and that's all we need to approve.
correct.
And I would make a motion that we approve this TDC budget accordingly.
Okay, is any other discussion on this? Okay, all in favor?
Can I just say one thing here?
This Marty?
Yeah,
Okay, we've already voted, it's unanimous, go ahead.
yeah, that's fine, but I think that the $4,000, that's part of your drive-in movie theater, I think that can be fit within the parameters of the existing budget the way it is.
Even better.
It's the $30,000 for the advertising signs that have to be a capitalized project, which will use some of the excess monies from our capital plan to fund that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we can move on to 610, the MLA letter supporting our local doctors. You see, our CAO wrote both of these letters up. We'll take a look at both of them, one to Minister Hunter, one to Minister Shandro. Just our support for the hospital and the clinic. Anybody have anything they want to add to him? I think he's done a good job.
Very good job.
Yeah, I think it captured everything we were aiming for.
So we need a motion to send these off to these two ministers.
I'll make
I'll
that.
move that we send, oh, go ahead.
Councillor Foss made that motion. Any other discussion? Then all in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. We'll move on to committee reports. I think nobody had any reports except for Councillor Harker, had some shared notes.
I haven't done anything, sorry.
So Councilor Harker, we'll make sure we add your shared notes to that template and we'll include it on the official agenda.
I didn't know whether to just put this on the shared note or put on the agenda because farm safety, you saw what I wrote about the farm safety warning. Had community members wanting to use the back of that lot for a community garden.
That's so appropriate.
Which, yeah, they will have to make I'm sure a formal, they just wanted to know what the town's appetite for that would be. And I didn't know, I thought it was a great idea in lieu of, you know, we're doing this Healthy Communities Initiative that Abe is kind of heading up. That's sort of in the wheelhouse of community cooperation and the living type of thing.
I think that could be brought up at another committee meeting to talk about the community garden.
I think if farm safety would like to make that official request, council could discuss that. That would probably be something that you would want to solicit input from adjacent neighbors. But outside of that, I'm not sure we have any administrative concerns with it.
Yeah, you wanna be bringing chickens up at a committee meeting too, right?
No, it's they're talking strictly a vegetable garden. So I will have them make a formal written request.
So in the future, these two to come up. Okay,
Oh, the other thing is that, did anybody notice the cracked bricks on the north side of the,
Yeah,
saw that?
we are aware. We've already spoken with the driver of the vehicle and they've paid for the damage. We've got a quote. We're just working to have our.
Okay, great.
It's
Okay,
serious.
just didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's all they did, they just drove into it, eh? Wow.
They pulled out of left turn out of the Burger Baron and smack dab into the middle of the statue. So
I bet it hurt their car.
it hurt their car more than it did the statue. It was really well constructed. So.
Okay.
And so far as the tape on the playground, I've not seen any other playgrounds, but the playground that I walk by every day, yeah, the tape is kind of comical because it's gone. So I don't know if we want it there or what, but
The tape
it's
is
just
up-
sort of blowing in the wind all over the place. So
Okay, it's
Anyways,
still up at
whatever.
most of the playgrounds, but we weren't aware of that one, I guess, so we'll have our crews go and until the province or council tells us otherwise, we'll make sure it's taped off again.
yeah, there's been kids on there when I go by.
That's the
Have a great
southwest playground?
Yeah,
Sounds like
the
the
wood
walking
one.
one.
The wood one.
The one on the walking path.
Okay.
Walking path.
Okay. We appreciate your notes there, Councillor Harker, and you're attending some meetings, because the rest of us aren't having any meetings, so that's good. So we need a motion to accept committee reports. Councillor Fromm makes that motion. All in favor? Okay. Correspondence. You see the correspondence? Is any one of these stick out, you want to talk about? From anybody? Need a motion to accept correspondence then? Councillor Fromm makes that motion. Any discussion on these? If not, all in favor? Okay. Now we need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Price makes a motion to go into closed, all in favor?
So just for a record, for anybody who's watching, the screen will go blank and the mics will be shut off, but once the closed session is over, we'll be coming back on, and so there'll just be a short interlude.
Okay,
See you guys.
thanks, Abe.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're now back in, session, so now we need a motion for adjournment.
I'll do it.
Counselor Fromm, all in favor? Okay, meeting is over. We'll see you next
Thank you.
week.